Let's start exploring whether or not you think it's possible to ever actually really have knowledge, right? To ever have a true justified belief that rises to that threshold where we say, this is something I know. I asked you in your thought primer, I gave you a challenge. Here are some statements like lemons are yellow. Can you find ways to doubt them, right? Doubt is this hesitancy that we have to accept a claim as true. We may have a lot of doubt about something and say like, oh, I highly doubt that. Or you may say, oh, I still have my doubts. But this doubt is this inability to fully accept a claim as true because you recognize some possible way that it could be false. Well, if you recognize some possible way that a statement could be false, can you ever accept that claim as knowledge? Or will it always be relegated to the arena of a probable belief or a plausible belief? Can we ever be certain about anything? In other words, certainty is that state that we're in when we have no doubts about a given statement that's offered to us, that we recognize there is no way this given statement could be false. It has to be true. Are there any statements for which that's the case? Is there anything you can think of that couldn't possibly be false? Can you be certain of anything? So you take something like lemons are yellow, right? Okay, so there's some kind of cheese ball ways to doubt that. Oh, it's an unripened lemon or it's a lemon that's been painted, but that's not what I'm asking you. You're looking at that lemon. You would bet your life that it is yellow. You're looking right at it. But can you think of a way that it wouldn't actually be yellow? It looks like it. That's the experience you're having. Is there any way that lemon, and all lemons, could be something other than yellow? Did you figure out a way to doubt that? The one I would come up with is that maybe it's possible that lemons, like other things in nature, has evolved to create a kind of optical illusion because it's beneficial to its survival. So you may have seen like those butterflies that have, as their wing patterns, something that looks really close to the face of a predatory bird. And that's been a really useful evolutionary adaptation because smaller birds then see that butterfly, which could be potential food, and they think, hey, I'm not going there. That butterfly actually looks enough like a predatory bird that the smaller birds think it is. Could the same thing be happening with lemons? Could there have been something that would have happened evolutionarily that would have caused lemons to create a kind of illusion that's created by things like mirages and so forth that causes us to experience that lemon as yellow when it's really not yellow? Is it possible? Yeah, it's possible. So there's room for doubt that lemons are actually yellow. Is there a way that you could doubt that the moon is much farther away from me than the tops of the trees? I believe that's true. From everything I've seen, all the books I've seen, all the photos I've seen, when I go out, I never see the moon swiping the tops of any trees or running into trees. I feel certain that the moon is much farther away from me than the tops of the trees are. Is there a way to doubt that? What if I didn't know that I was having an experience like Jim Carrey had in that movie Truman Show, right? Where his entire reality was constructed to appear different than it actually is, right? So he looks out and he thinks he's looking out over the ocean and looking at the horizon. He's just looking at a wall. When he sees that moon coming up at night, that's just a light that's coming up what appears to be the sky. But he's really just on a movie set. He just doesn't know it. Is it possible? I'm not saying is it likely. Is there any way possible that I could be having that same experience, that my life is so interesting that I'm a part of a voyeuristic reality TV show that I'm not aware of? Possible. Is there a way that I could doubt that I'm 53 years old? Oh God, 53. That sounds awful. Is there a way that could be false? Is there any way? Please help me figure this out. How am I not 53? Help me figure out how I'm really 40. Well, I suppose the easy one would be like my birth certificate has an error on it, or maybe something like my parents had me before they were married, but they didn't want anybody to know, and they didn't want me to know that I was born before they were married. So they actually waited until I was born and then had a phony birth certificate developed. And I've just lived my whole life thinking that my birthday is on July 10th. Is there any way to doubt that astronauts have visited the moon? That one seems pretty straightforward, right? The whole Hollywood movie set deal. Don't think it's plausible, but it certainly seems possible. I mean, I've never been to the moon. I didn't watch those folks go there. Is there a way to doubt that I'm reading this PowerPoint on my computer right now? Is there a way it could be possible that you're not actually watching this video right now? Think about that. Is there any way you could not be having the experience that you, with almost 100% certainty, believe you're now having? Could you think of a way to do that? To doubt that? The one I would probably come up is this, is there are sometimes when I'm dreaming that I don't know I'm dreaming. And I've had this conversation with students over the years, and they have all these funny kind of little tricks that they'll share. It's like, oh, well, pinch yourself in your dream, or try to read something, and if you can read it, then you know you're not dreaming because you can't read in dreams. Or look at a clock, and if the hands are scrambled on the clock, that means you're dreaming. But if you can actually tell the time, you're not dreaming. And then, of course, I have these experiences where I dream and I read stuff and I look at clocks and I pinch myself and I convince myself in the dream I'm not dreaming, but I was really dreaming. So maybe that's happening right now. Sometimes when I'm dreaming, I know I'm dreaming. But there are other times I swear I'm not dreaming. It feels like a very real experience. Could this be that? Sure. Why wouldn't I? Why isn't it possible I could have a dream that I was doing something that I spend a huge portion of my life doing? Same thing with you. You spend a lot of your life listening to me. Is it totally inconceivable that I have made my way into your dreams and this is actually an experience that you think you're having that you're actually not? Is there a way to doubt that 2 plus 3 equals 5? You come up with a way to doubt that? Right? This is the famous test in Orwell's 1984. They'll tell you that 2 plus 2 equals 5. And you have to believe that. You have to get to the point where you believe that in order to be safe to the state. So is there any way 2 plus 2 could equal something other than 5? We'll come back to this one later. This is really an interesting one, but I am curious to know if you found a way to doubt that. Hey, so what we're sort of doing right now is we're practicing this thing called skepticism. Skepticism is when we employ our doubt to make sure that the claims that we're considering are actually worth accepting. To make sure that when somebody claims they know something, we have a good reason for believing that the thing they claim they know is something they actually know. But a skeptic is going to say things like, your sense organs are kind of unreliable. Just like we were talking about, I'm walking down this street in Arizona and I think I'm having this experience of reality. I don't know. My experience of reality is certainly going to be a lot different than a mantis shrimp, which sees in huge color range. They're going to see things that I'm not seeing. So when I make a claim to knowledge, the skeptic is going to say, well, you think you know that, but really all you know is what you learn from your sense organs, and your sense organs are highly unreliable. You think you see water going across the highway in the desert, but it's actually just a mirage. Sometimes you hear a noise that you think is one thing, and it actually turns out to be another. I remember one time as a kid, I swore that I heard a baby crying outside my bedroom window. And got really upset. And it turned out it was like a couple of cats making very baby-like noises. So my sense organs can be unreliable. And the skeptic is going to say, and keep in mind, the sense data isn't the same thing as the thing, right? So when I hear a sound like a dog barking, that sound doesn't actually exist in reality as I experience it. That sound exists as waves moving through the air. And then my ears process those waves into sound. So a skeptic is going to say, look, you make these claims based on what you've learned through using your sense organs, but keep in mind your sense organs have processed this experience of reality into something that's very different than the way reality actually is. And you can't get outside yourself to verify the way that you think you're experiencing reality is what reality actually is like. You're always stuck in the matrix of your body. And so you can't get outside of yourself to verify that the claims you make are actually true. You only know your individual thoughts, the skeptic says. You cannot have knowledge. You can only have you can have knowledge to the degree that you can know what your beliefs are, and you can know what your thoughts are. Okay? Now there's some that are going to be what are called universal skeptics. And they're going to say, there's not the possibility of knowledge of anything because of what's listed up here on the screen. You can't ever actually know anything. You can only believe things, okay? And they're going to say this about every single thing. Every single one of the experiences that you feel 100% certain about, the skeptic is going to say, you can't be 100% certain for all of these reasons listed up here. Now, hopefully there's going to be, we'll take a less extreme position than that, and we'll be a limited skeptic, right? A limited skeptic is going to say, I think there's reason to disbelieve or to doubt some claims to knowledge. And I have good reason for doing that. All right, so what we'll do now is figure out how much of a skeptic you are.